All right, here's an interesting bit of information. There's ancient cart ruts that you find all over the world, and they found some here through Bull Creek in Austin, Texas, just right out of the city here that's near Brawny Rock and all these places you can go to. And you can see these cart ruts here. Now, what's odd about these linear cart ruts is they try to say that this is from pioneers and that pioneers came through here constantly, and in doing so made these ruts. Well, there's some odd facts about that all the carts weren't uniform and they didn't have the same wheelbase, and so it couldn't ride in the same rut constantly. There wasn't a uniform size of necessarily carts and wheels, and I don't know how many millions of carts you think would have to go over limestone to actually eventually erode into it ruts like this. But that's what it looks like we're seeing. Now, other people will say that this was done whenever it was muddy and then it dried up, but it takes some 20 to 30,000 years to make limestone. And this is limestone. Now, if you'll look, there's no animal hoof prints or a pushed up area in the middle of this in any way, shape, or form that looks like they were going through mud. So in that process, it wouldn't leave any footprints there if this was already hard stone and had gone over millions of times, uh, developing the ruts through small amounts of erosion. Now, these compare to sites like in Malta and things that have ruts that are 3 times as deep, that are lined up, and people have measured them for long, long distances, and they're the exact same distance apart. And it's almost like an old railway system where instead of riding up on rails, you'd ride down in ruts. And perhaps animals had gone back and forth so many times to these places, they were domesticated to do so, that they would just take this journey going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, thousands, if not millions of times for the wooden wheels to slowly erode into the ground, something like this. I mean, if you were trying to make ruts like this, it would be very difficult to do so. And yet these ruts are shown up all over the primordial world of Europe and Malta and all through there, but also are found around the world in some strange places like here in Texas, where there are ruts that clearly show this same type of left archaeology here for us to figure out later, where 3 ruts our 2 separate tracks here cross and go into one set, and then they slowly peter out here off at the end. But it's odd that we have this depiction. There are not a hoof print mark, nothing that looks like anything was going on in between the ruts. And so my only thoughts on something like this are that either they were being pulled by people on either side with ropes that are far off away from the mud, which would have to have been on the other side of the creek on the right side, and the left side up in vegetation, which would make it almost impossible. If the vegetation wasn't here at the time, but yet this was muddy, why would they choose to go through this area as opposed to other areas too? It just doesn't make sense. And again, this isn't part of some cattle trail either. This isn't part of some normal cattle trail like the Goodnight Loving Trail or one of those. This isn't a portion of that, and really doesn't run even close to this area. So it doesn't make sense why there would be ruts of this amount, this depth, and in this area. Of course, with the mud effect, not having any hoof prints in the middle of it, it really dictates something that had gone on for a long, long time, and way before the American Indians were even here too, and through that time. But yet they didn't have carts, they didn't have the wheel, and so how is something like this there? Like